Abundance is our birthright. We begin our life in this world having everything we need. Then we forget. The challenge of this lifetime is to remember who we are and to claim the birthright we inherited. Our future is secure. We are on the cusp of an evolutionary transformation of the human race. The next phase of evolution on Earth will be a planetary consciousness in which each sentient being will realize his or her interdependence and interconnection with every other living being on the planet. The place to begin the change is inside us. What we see in the world around us is a direct reflection of our inner world. Our inner landscape is created by the core beliefs, presuppositions, values, feelings, thoughts, and emotions we store in our DNA. We can change the world we see at any time by changing the things we believe in. This workshop is a beginning place to support your transformation in the area of abundance and prosperity. To live a prosperous life, you must first believe it is possible. Second, believe you can achieve it. And third, believe it is worth doing. During the next hour we spend together, we will explore and bring to light some of the beliefs and attitudes you currently hold toward money. We will begin to replace those beliefs with more supportive ideas that you can begin to embed as a new, more empowering belief system. We will also discover several specific strategies that you can immediately begin to use to create more financial well-being and true abundance in your life. We will discover the mechanism with which you communicate to the universe to create what you want. We will begin to clear inhibiting programs that prevent clear communication so that you can align yourself more fully with the abundant flow of Source.
I believe the whole planet is churning on an abundance cycle. We are more and more able to give back. We are more and more able to respond. The universe loves to be entertained, and we do a good job of entertaining God with all our semantics and shenanigans and trying to figure it out. And I reached a point where I decided it's got to be much simpler than this. It's got to be much simpler than getting the feng shui in the right corner, or, holding your breath in a certain way, or, those to me are somewhere between voodoo and superstition. One of my personal mentors, who's a man who was very technology oriented. He was one of the 5 computer engineers who developed the first hard drive for PCs. He taught me about this concept of reversing polarity. And I don't know if either of you work very much with energy or electricity or magnets, but you know what a magnet is. It's got positive batteries, positive, negative. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our efforts, if you will, to make things happen are exactly that. They're efforts. They're pushing out. They're exerting yourself. Reverse the polarity. How do you do that? That's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah, It's like, whoa, how do you do that? Well, it's like if you're an electromagnet, just wind the wires the other way. That's easy. But if you're a person, how do we wind our wires the other way, if you will? But because that's really what we're trying to do, is make ourselves sticky, attractive magnets for prosperity, rather than having to reach out and effort and grab. Getting is very easy. It's just turn it around. Professor of economics, we are not taught these things in school, okay? We're taught scarcity is there's a science. Did you know there's a science of scarcity? Isn't that appalling?
It is.
What I'm offering you is a glimpse at another possibility, a glimpse at another way of being and thinking. And I'm not to say I'm perfect and not to say I've got it all, because the good news is I'm still here, but I'm a work in progress. But I think that I've learned some things, and I think that they ring true for the most people that I've shared them with. Is what you get, WYSIWYG, that term from computer software. What you see is what you get. Wayne Dyer wrote one of my favorite books, and it's an old book from the 1980s called You'll See It when you believe it. Most people say, I'll believe it when I see it. And, this is another one of those reverses. You're going to find a lot of those tonight that are kind of fun, which is absolutely true about money. It's true about everything. What you believe, the key point that I want to pull out here is that what you believe shapes your conscious awareness of the world, and it shapes a particular part of your brain that's about the size of the quarter that sits inside the left little part of your skull right in here, that's called your reticular activator. You ever heard of that term before? Have you ever gone and bought a new, well, guys know this more than girls, but like a new dress or new, really kind of clothing, or a new car or something that you think is very unique, and then you see it everywhere? I mean, everybody has those kinds of experiences, and what happens is the conscious awareness of your brain filters information. We can't possibly consciously log everything that we experience. It's too much. So we set our filters to register in our conscious awareness certain things and to just stuff the rest into the back of our brain and let it sit there for future processing. So when we change our awareness, like buying a new dress and then it shows up at a party and 3 other women are wearing it, and you want to kill them all, our consciousness has shifted to a new awareness. So our filter has been reset. Okay, so there's no magic, there's no metaphysical. This is just brain physiology stuff. So what we're going to do on the next page is there's a set of statements here, and I want you to go through these. We'll take 5 or 10 minutes and just mark each statement whether you strongly agree with it or strongly disagree or somewhere in the middle, because this is going to be a measure of where your filters are set right now. It's just an awareness thing. There's no right or wrong. It's just an awareness. There's no rights or wrongs. This is just a present awareness. If you don't have a benchmark to start from, then you can't know if you're changing or not.
Well, the 2 things that I marked was having a lot of money is a big responsibility. I couldn't decide whether I agreed or disagreed with that. So I had a 3.
The question is, how do you feel about that? Is it okay to have a lot of responsibility, like yay? There's a line in the Bible, to he who has much, much will be given. That's a responsibility.
Is it the responsibility or the money?
Yes. No, which is it for you? I mean, where's the hook for you?
I would guess it's the responsibility.
Is that the
Okay, can we unpack that word a little bit? Responsibility.
Okay.
Okay, put a little hyphen after response,
Mm-hmm.
and then put the word able after it. Able to respond.
Okay.
Does that work a little differently for you?
That has more of an element of freedom in it.
It does, doesn't it? Choice. What do we normally think of as responsibility? Is there the word burden hooked right in there? Yeah, so that's where most people go, ooh, I don't want to be burdened with that. And so you just push the whole thing away from you, and guess what? The money just went flying in the opposite direction. But if you are now, and that's why I love Oprah's Big Give, is that the coolest thing ever? The ability to respond to the needs of others. How cool is that? Is find the word or find the words in that sentence that bothered you and rewrite it as something else that's more empowering. That's the whole trick to this exercise. Is to you're relanguaging, you're repatterning your own communication with yourself. So we just took this one sentence that we went, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I think we turned it into something that's very strong and very powerful. Having a lot of money is a big responsibility, yippee. I'm excited about that because I get to respond, I get to give back. I get to be able to do things for others that I couldn't do without money. Secrets of Wealth Mastery. And it's a series of little flash presentations, and they're really tiny. They're like 2-3 minute flash presentations, and they're really nice. But they're all about these belief systems. They're all about these little structures that we have embedded in our consciousness and where we get them from. Our parents, our grandparents. You were saying earlier that in your family, money was always a struggle. So it's, and I don't want I don't want to presume to say, well, this is what's going on with you, but possibility, now you're married, and your identity of marriage and family is money's a struggle. Mm-hmm. And that's a core part of that's hooked into your love story that you tell yourself about what it means to be a family and to have a spouse, a husband, and be loved and have a loving family, is that together our loving family struggles about money. Well, wouldn't it be nice to unhook those? Pop, I grew up in a Jewish family in New York with a very strict injunction, don't talk to strangers. Started my own business, I get into marketing. You got that picture, right? Everybody's a stranger, so I can't talk to strangers. So and I observed my young friend going up to the people he's never met before in a restaurant, saying something wonderfully complimentary and exchanging phone numbers, and I'm like, I don't know if you were aware of this, but I watched you for years going, how do you do that? Until I learned how to do that. Because my belief was, don't talk to strangers. And it was very strong. And so those are things that when you bring them to consciousness and you see them for what they are, you can say, okay, I'm going to rewrite that. And literally take a piece of paper with any of these things. We don't have time to go through all the transformations tonight, but any of these things where you go, that doesn't really work for me, rewrite it on a piece of paper, cross this out, and write down something that works for you. And make those your new affirmations. That's so powerful. So what I took my don't talk to strangers into is nobody's a stranger, everyone's a friend, I just haven't met them yet. Mm-hmm. And that works much better for me. That works way better for me. That's what you can do with this. There's a benchmarking about this, but there's also something where as you progress in your own inner work and outer work with your money and finances, use this as your benchmarking tool. Come back to this in a month, come back to it in 3 months, take the test again. Just see where you are. I call this page my BS page. That's belief systems. Okay? And we all have our own internal BS, if you will, I love that term, belief systems, that mostly stays buried, mostly stays unconscious for us. And these are great opportunities to bring them up, retune that reticular activator so that our new awareness is, oh, I see another friend, I haven't met you yet. And that's why when you guys walked in today, I said, hi, I'm Barbara. That's my friend part of me going, hey, connect. Let me know who you are. And you can activate those things. Now, without looking at all the answers I put down here, which of course you're doing, what is money? Because if we're going to talk about money and if we're going to talk about attracting it and building it and growing it and keeping it, what is it? Let's get a really good working definition here. I'm just going to hold that sentence that you shared with us, and I know you were kind of kidding about it, but then evil people give you money. You put in time and effort and energy, and then evil people give you money. Yeah, yeah. So words mean things. So, which is really great reminder to be very conscious of our word choices and to maybe start unhooking that, because that unhooking of that may give you a transition into having great people giving you money, where it's a pleasure to exchange your time and effort for these wonderful people who are giving you money. Okay. I mean, if you want to have the world the way you want it, have the world the way you want it. The only one stopping you is you. And sometimes we're so not conscious of these because we get stuck in these ruts of I've been in this ditch for so long, that I don't even know how to grab the shovel. And it takes somebody else saying, you know what, all you need to do is take a step and you're not in the ditch anymore. You don't need the shovel. And, take that thought that money is a currency. Money is an exchange of energy, but you're actually getting something tangible back. And that's one of the points I want to get to here, is that money is actually something tangible. You're putting in effort, you're putting in, physical exertion, you're putting in intelligence, you're putting in experience, you're putting in a lot of things, some hidden and not visible and some very visible. But when you get what you get back as money, it's tangible for the most part, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You get a paycheck, you get bills, you get coins. That's pretty tangible stuff. So let's poke at that a little bit more, okay? What's money? One of my favorite authors, Stuart Wilde, had a little book that he wrote. It's a little booklet thing called The Trick to Money is Having Some. I love that little booklet. If you don't know Stuart Wilde, it's a little booklet. It's about 20 pages long and it's just packed with good stuff. And it is. That's what we all go through life going, the trick to money is having some. Mm-hmm. How come other people have it and we don't? We're just kind of going around like those pilgrims whose candles keep getting snuffed out. What's up with that?
I think money is, in my opinion, or maybe the reason I want money, is it provides security and freedom.
Okay. So it represents, and this is great, it represents certain really important values to you.
Correct.
Beautiful.
It's not necessarily that money represents that, but that if you have that, you can achieve those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, they're very closely tied.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's very core for me.
It is. And Harv has a thing in this new flash that he just came out with that says, if I can remember it exactly, that people who focus on being comfortable often don't end up being rich, but people who focus on being rich often end up being comfortable. That's one of those reverse polarity kind of things. That lots of times, and this is especially true when you're an entrepreneur, you draw these lines in the sand and say, well, I'm willing to do this, this, and this, but I won't do this for money. And we have our places where we won't go. It's just something to think about, just something to look at. So what is money? Money is security, money is wealth, that's a store of value.
Mm-hmm. Freedom.
Mm-hmm. I used to tell my students, we live on the money planet. This is radical stuff. I want people to really get this. We live on the money planet. On this planet, in the 21st century, there are very few places you can go on the whole entire earth and not need money.
Correct.
So it is a core of something that's going on, and the entire planet's infected by it, pretty much, except for tiny little pockets. So I still want to know what it is. Because when I go into, and I'll be the economist for a minute, when I used to go into classroom and talk about money and banking, I used to actually go in with a magician's hat and a cape and a wand and pull a rabbit out of a hat. Because money is very mysterious. Our government measures money. We have these measures called M1, M2, and M3 now. When you go into the bank and borrow money for a house, for personal line of credit, when you get a credit card and you charge stuff on your credit card, you have actually participated in the process of creating money. It's startling, isn't it? It's radical. So money is a very mysterious thing. It's a mysterious concept, but if we don't know what it is, then we can't work with it. We can't start attracting it. So we know money is bills. We exchange money. When you guys came in here tonight, we know it's coins that you put in parking meters. We know that when we write a check at the store, that's money, right? So checks count as money. Isn't that interesting? That's the measure of M1. The basic money supply. We also have an expanded concept of savings, money in your savings account, that counts as money. Money in your money market account, that counts as money. Money on your credit cards, that counts as money. Okay, now is most of that tangible? No, most of that is little blips on somebody's computer somewhere. It's mostly invisible, to make it even more confusing and more mysterious. So again, back to my fundamentals from economists, and there are some values there. How would we function in this whole process of exchange without money? We would then be in what's called a barter system. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted a loaf of bread, you'd have to find somebody who baked bread who maybe wanted some jewelry, so you could swap. But the problem with it is, if you want to build a house, or if you want to put meat on the table, or if you want to have a computer and you don't have money to buy it, you either have to find somebody who wants the services you can provide and say, hey, I'll trade you software consulting or jewelry or photography or whatever it is for this computer, and that's great if you have a mutuality of needs and wants. But if you don't, then you need to find a third party or a fourth party or a fifth party, and barter can get to broker it, and barter can get very cumbersome. It can get very complicated.
Money's the maybe not universally, but money is the agreed upon medium.
Exactly. So that, I hope, simplifies it a little bit, because in its essence, money is simply oil that greases the wheels. It's just a tool to use. We've made it represent all these values, all these big things, all these emotional things, all these hooks, but money is a tool to use. And in the places where you need money, having money is really useful. And in the places where you don't need money, like, I'm not talking just geography, but all aspects of life, spirituality, relationships, creativity. I mean, there are plenty of places in our lives where money doesn't apply. But there are other places in our lives where having that tool is very useful. And so if you start looking at it that way, it's just a tool. It's just something that facilitates making my life a whole lot easier. Like having a dishwasher. It takes, I think, maybe it diffuses that energy a little bit, because if we can start looking at, well, okay, there are certain aspects of life in which money is relevant. And in those aspects of life, it's a good thing to have. So it's changing the oil in your car every 3 months. It's a good thing to do. Those are just simply things to do, things to have. Like having a dishwasher, it's a convenience. Not having to ride the bus, or not having to figure out how you're going to get home tonight 100 miles from here without a car. It's a convenience. And so if you start thinking about money as one of those tools that you use, then maybe it will change your relationship to that tool, and maybe it will demystify it a little bit, and maybe take some of the emotional charges, because we all have baggage, we all have stuff that we grew up in families, we had friends, we had experiences, we tried things, we went, this thing works for me, this thing doesn't work for me, and we kind of accumulated all of that, and we're bringing it all here tonight and going, okay, this is how my filter's set. And if that's working for you, great, but I think the reason you guys are here tonight is so that we can maybe reset those filters and have them work differently. So down on the bottom of this page, I put some of the empowering beliefs, and again, these are just things that I want to offer you to try on for size, because these are things that rich people think about money. These are things that wealthy people who accumulate and attract money easily and comfortably, these are some of, if you want to know how people, let me take this back a step. If you want to have a lifestyle, or if you want to emulate somebody who you admire, who has a lifestyle, who has wealth, who has success, who has the kind of relationships, who has the kind of ability to travel and do things you want to do and go on vacation in the Caribbean and so on, one way to do that is to study that person's behavior very, very carefully and do what they do, and think how they think, and behave how they behave, and carry yourself in your physiology the way they carry themselves in their physiology. In other words, if you did everything exactly like that other person did, you'd have what they have. You'd experience what they'd experience. So I'm starting you here with, these are kind of like training wheels. Try these on for size. Practice with these. These are beliefs that wealthy people hold. Money is a tool. Money is a servant. Money is good in the places where money is useful. Not, you know what I'm saying about that. Another interesting one, money is valuable only as long as it's being used. In economics, we talk about the velocity of money, how many times money changes hands in a week or in a month or something like that. Money likes to be in circulation. And I don't want to characterize money as having a psyche of its own, but in a sense it does, because it's a commodity. It's a tool. And it's animated in the same way that everything in life is animated, in the same way that everything in life is alive. It does have a soul, it does have a consciousness, and money likes to circulate. It likes to get spent. It likes to be used over and over again. The other thing that I jumped over in the middle, I want to touch on this and then we'll move on. Kim, you brought up some of the values, some of the reasons, and these are really important too, the reasons you want money. To really look into those, and some of the things you said about security, freedom, and so on and so forth, take that another layer deeper and ask yourself, what is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of that? That's a question that's going to let you get deeper into your own beliefs and values. So if you're saying that money enables me to be secure, what's the purpose of being secure for you? I'm not going to do it now, but take that home and whatever you come up with, and what's the purpose of that? And what's the purpose of that? And what I think you'll find ultimately underneath a lot of these is when we come to, so I feel safe, so I feel loved, so I feel protected, so I feel cherished. I think underneath that we all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We all want to be loved. We all want to be appreciated, understood, respected, admired. But that's a way of getting at what those core values are. The reason that those are important is because you want to separate your needs on an emotional level from your transactions in the world of business. And a lot of time, especially for women, it's really easy to get those hooked up and go, great, I'm a success in business, I have money flowing in, my shop's working, I'm self-employed, my business is booming, therefore I'm a valuable person, and therefore I'm well provided for. And so the minute the business goes down, you go, oh, I'm a worthless person. You want to be able to unhook those things because you're always worthy. Your value is not in dispute, just your mechanics. Okay, the first step toward financial freedom is knowing what you want. And that may sound easy, but as we get into this thing of affirmations, or what I like to call communicating with the universe likes specifics. I had a friend who desperately needed communication and went around saying, I really need a car, I really need a car, I really need a car, I really need a car. And somebody gave him a $200 junker that was falling apart.
But it was a car.
But it was a car. He got a car. And I had another friend who went around saying, and I don't remember the exact car because I'm not a car person, but it was something like, I want a model 623 BMW with red exterior and white leather on the inside and a convertible and a wooden steering wheel and a blah, 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 and this kind of thing. You get the difference of specificity. Mm-hmm. So when we start getting into our affirmations or our creativity or whatever you want to call it, articulating what you want is a huge key here in getting specific. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Abraham entity, Esther Hicks. In some of her early work, she channels this entity called Abraham. And it's I forget her husband's name, but she's the channel, and he writes stuff down, and they're very cool. They're very cool people. But in some of the early work, Abraham talks about this concept called the workshop, and the workshop is a place where you go in your morning meditation every morning, and you simply go through your scenario that you're creating in your life, and you add specific detail. So your only purpose is to envision your future in very specific, living color, not seeing yourself in it, but actually seeing it through your own eyes, which is called associated. If you see yourself like you're on a movie screen, that's called dissociated. Mm-hmm. So the most powerful way to visualize is when you're seeing it in the first person, seeing it through your own eyes. So you're looking around, seeing what you see, hearing what you hear, smelling what you smell, and you're adding detail.
Right.
The rest of your day after you do your workshop, and that can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 15 minutes, whatever. The rest of your day, according to Abraham, as you go through your day, you're simply noticing what do you like and what do you not like. What do you want and what do you not want? And then the next morning you go back into your workshop and you take all the things from the previous day that you want and you put that into your workshop. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
There's a thing in there. Let me see if I can pull this apart for you. There's a thing in there about expectation, and that's where you asked me a question earlier about when do you let go. Mm-hmm. And that's right where that moment that happens where we start getting hooked to this must happen in this specific time frame in this specific way. Then we're hooked into expectation, and we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. So again, take it to values, because that's the real place that we create from. Why do you want the car? What does that represent to you? Is it transportation? Is it mobility? Is it freedom? Is it status? Is it respect? I mean, we can all want the same car for very, very different reasons. So the only way to individualize that is to say what it means to you, and you're the only one who can say that. And then I find that those, I've done the writing exercises, but I find that pictures work even more powerfully for the subconscious. Our subconscious, let me break this apart. You've been in real estate, you understand
like
buildings.
Pictures in your head or cutting them out of magazines?
Both.
Okay.
Both. All of the above.
Just
but
visuals.
but icons, images, even taking your non-dominant hand in a crayon and drawing pictures on a piece of paper that only you know what they mean. Here's how it works. When you build a building, you start with a blueprint, right? Mm-hmm. And who draws the blueprint? That's the architect. That's like your subconscious. That's the work we do. We architect, we design, we blueprint. Now, if you've ever seen a blueprint, it's pretty specific, especially the ones that have to pass code. They have to show where the dryer vents go and where the plumbing goes. They're pretty specific. Oh my gosh, yeah.
And if you don't want them on that wall, you better speak up.
Now, the interesting thing about this whole process of building and creation is the architect doesn't build the buildings very often. Sometimes an architect is a general contractor, but most often the general contractor is a separate person. The general contractor is like our conscious brain. So now we have blueprinting, which really takes place in the subconscious, and that's that picture.
That's an
And the
awesome
conscious
analogy, because
is
you
like
go to
the
think about
contractor. And what is the contractor too?
education and creativity, and the real work is done by the architect. I mean,
Yeah.
the contractor, it's important to have an honest one.
But the contractor just goes and guts
the
stuff.
architect.
Now, does the contractor build the building? No. What does the contractor do?
He just manages the
Oversees.
other.
Okay, who is the contractor communicating with? Our analogy here,
Subconscious.
the subconscious is saying, build me a building. The contractor is saying, you got it. Now the contractor is going to go out and get all the supplies, all the resources, all the tools, bring them all together and build the building. That's like our communication with God, the universe.
Yeah.
Okay? And so what we have going on is, I want this. That's what the architect says. Here's my blueprint. This is what I want. Your contractor, your conscious mind says, you got it, puts the order out to the universe. And what does the universe say? Yes.
Yeah.
The universe says yes to everything. So back comes the plumber, the electrician, the designer, the cabinets, the countertops, the toilets, the light fixtures, all the stuff starts flying in.
Yeah.
That's the magnetic part.
I love that analogy, because I have been putting all the focus on the contractor. Like, how come the house isn't getting built? Come on, contractor, do it, do it. Yeah.
And if you've ever built a house, what you know is it never comes out exactly like the blueprint. That's where you unhook that expectation.
Uh-huh.
Because if you're saying, well, no, you can't do it this way because the blueprint says it has to be this way. No, because there's a dynamic process that takes place that mediates that. So when the resources come back from the universe, it's always this or something better. Have you ever done vision boards? Because I hear stories about, especially houses. Houses are amazingly easy to manifest. But I hear stories about people, and I've done this a couple of times myself, where I cut out a picture of the magazine, or I had this vision, and I wrote it, or I drew a picture of it, and then I stuffed it away. And I did one of these a couple of years. I moved back to Colorado about 3 years ago. I was living in San Diego. And it was 2004. I had done one of these vision boards, and I stuffed it in the back of my closet. Came out here, you know, went around with a realtor, found a house, went back to Colorado, got my stuff, California, got my stuff, moved over here. And as I was unpacking, I got this vision board and I put it on my wall in my office because one of the gals who was working for me at the time as my property manager walked into my office one day, looked at that and said, "Where'd you get that picture of your house?" And I went, "What? What house?" And I looked at it, and it was the first time my conscious mind saw it, and there was a picture of a white frame Victorian house, little cottage with a porch, with windows, with certain color framing, and it had this dirt road coming out of the front of the house. And I went outside, and I looked at the front of my house, and I looked at this picture, and I looked across the street, and it was the most uncanny thing. There I was living in this little white house, and right across from my front door was a dirt alley.
Wow.
That part of your brain, your reticular activator, when you set your filters, it goes back into your unconscious, your subconscious brain, and you go around looking. It's part of matching and sorting. That's what your brain does. It matches and sorts. Is this like what I'm looking for? No. Throw it away. Is this like what I'm looking for? No. Throw it away. Is this like what I'm looking for? Yes. Keep it. That's what your brain does.
Somewhere in one of these things about, you know, putting your order out to the universe, somebody said, or I read or something that said, you know, don't limit yourself. So, you know, maybe you shouldn't say, I want to make $100,000 this year or whatever, because maybe the universe has $250,000. So how do you go about doing that? I mean,
Well, part of my tagline is this or something better. So when I'm making a request, it's always the greatest that I can imagine. And this is an interesting statistic. This is just a statistic. Most people cannot conceive of earning more than 10 times their current income. And that's a psychology, physiology. So there is this sort of sense of self-limiting because we don't want to blow our own minds, as it were. And there's even principles in the Bible that talk about tenfold increase. And you go, well, wait, God is infinite. Why are they limiting at 10? Why not 100? Why not 1,000? Why not 1,000,000? And it's because that's what most physiologies can handle. Our physiologies can't handle dynamic radical change because we are corporeal beings. We are in bodies, and bodies do have limitations, and we got to respect those. I mean, you know, somebody who's 5'5" is going to wake up the next morning being 6'10". It's just not going to happen. You know, so there are limitations in physical form, and we are in a physical world. That's what we're talking about. But our psyche, our intellect, our creativity, our emotionality, our capacity for love, our capacity for giving, those are limitless. Those are infinite aspects of us. So I always put those things out in my subconscious or in my contractor who's talking to the universe for me as this or something better. Because I can express in my conscious mind the biggest thing I can conceive of, but I know that I'm limited by my own physiology. And I know that there's a power greater than me, so there's always something greater. So, something else you said about putting out, well, I want to make $1 million or I want to make $100,000. I want us to come back to that because quantitative is good, specific is good. And I find that this is, again, experience in working with a lot of entrepreneurs who were starting businesses, and we were projecting revenue and projecting expenses. That's very specific, you know, detailed financial forecast. I find that many, many times an entrepreneur's ability to conceive how fast their business will grow vastly underestimates what they're capable of, and vastly underestimates what the universe is capable of. But investors get scared if you show that you're going to make 1,000% growth in the first 3 years. They get scared about that. So you have to, but what I'm saying is that, again, our capacity is limitless. But we all have to start someplace. We all have to put specific things down. Let me come back to tangible for a minute, because there's actually some practical things that you can do here. One of the exercises that I did for myself this year that I absolutely loved was I wrote a very detailed description in words, in writing, about my desired lifestyle that I am now living. that hasn't quite completed catching up with me, but I am now living my desired lifestyle. But what I did to really anchor it with money, and this was a huge key for me, is I wrote down how much do each of these things cost. Whether it was getting a massage once a week or going to the spa monthly or, seeing my mom 4 times a year or whatever it was, I anchored that in money. And I wrote down and I looked at what is my minimum required monthly budget to live the lifestyle that I choose to live, that I am choosing to live. And that for me was a very empowering exercise. One of the seminars that I've been to, they give you like a blank $1 million check and your homework assignment is go spend it overnight. And that's kind of like, yeah, anybody can do that. That's like a fantasy. But this made my dream, my vision, if you will, very, very tangible for me. And it wasn't that I have to have this by December 14th, 2008 or whatever, specific date I put there. But it gave me then some very practical steps to start moving forward, knowing that I was drawing myself closer and closer to my desired vision. And it gave me a tool for looking at, am I on course or am I off course? Am I going in the direction of my desired dream, or am I going in a different direction? So, there's a lot of things I can talk about here, but anchoring your vision in money is a very useful thing to do. I mean, like I said before, we want to anchor it. We want to see ourselves in that reality in as many different capacities as possible. See the pictures, hear the sounds, smell the smells, and know what's in your bank account. Hello? Know what's in your bank account. Know what the inflow is. Know what the outflow is. Get as specific as you can. If our focus is on manifesting money, let's know how much money we need, and let's break it down, break it down, break it down. Sometimes our body doesn't know or doesn't remember what it feels like to have that feeling. Like, how does it feel to have great people generously paying us more than we're worth? Mm-hmm. So we have to practice that. We have to create that in our minds and our imaginations to really practice that, to really get that experience so that it becomes more accustomed and it's just part of that communication. So I keep trying to get into this practical stuff, which we keep veering away, but I think money is important in the areas in which it's important, where it has meaning. It doesn't mean that money rules our lives, but here's a rule. That once we've got these budgets down, once we know what our game plan is, pay yourself first. Let me give you a way to actualize this, because I know you guys are sitting here saying, well, I don't have all the money I want to have right now, and I don't have this and I don't have that. Take what you have and start there. This is a habit building exercise, and it's more about the practice than it is about the amount of money you have. So the way to make this process real is to start with $10. If that's all you've got to put into this process, $10 a month, start with $10 and start breaking down your categories, put them in envelopes, put them in jars, open 6 or 7 different bank accounts and put $1 a month away. The practice is more important than the amount. Again, we're building habits, we're building new skill sets. This is your toolbox, okay? So if you can't take your entire income, take 10% of that and pay yourself first, take $10, take 10% of that and pay yourself $1. What do you do with that? Anything you want. No.
Yeah, excuse my lack of imagination.
Yeah.
What does it mean the first 10% goes to me? What is it?
Okay, if you're an employee, you get a paycheck.
Yeah.
The paycheck comes home, and where does it go? Goes into the checking account, and you write checks against it and pay bills, right?
Yeah.
So the first money goes to your creditors, the people you owe money to. What I'm saying is take your paycheck, let's say it's, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $1,000, and take $100 of that and put it into a savings account that's going to go to investing. You may say, well, I can't save, I can't afford to save 10% of my paycheck because it's not there.
Okay.
So I'm saying start with $10 and save $1.
Yes.
Because as your income grows, your habit will increase. And again, this is a great practice. So there's a couple of different variations on this, but if you have debt, if you have credit card debt, your next 20% is for clearing debt. So if you're paying off credit cards, because that is like reducing your negative savings so that you can now begin positive savings. These are practices, these are habits that wealthy people use. So if you want to do that thing and emulate the behavior of people who have the lifestyle that you are desiring to have, these are habits that you want to learn. And start where you can. Start, like I said, start with $10 and put $1 aside in an envelope every month. The point is not, gee, at the end of the year I'm going to have $12 to go buy a book with. The point is I've developed a habit and I have diligently done this for 12 months. Okay? Other categories that you may want to create in education. One of the things you find about really successful, wealthy people is they invest a ton of money in their own education. Education about money, education about finance, education about investing, education about other wealth-making opportunities. This long-term savings for spendings is an interesting category. This is part of your get-out-of-debt strategy. Instead of going out and buying a new car, or maybe a car is too big, but say you want to go on a vacation, instead of putting it on a credit card, create an account that's a vacation account, chunk money into it at regular periods, and when that account totals the amount that you want, I mean, it may be something as simple as buying a new dress or buying a CD. I'm thinking of really small things, $10 item, but whatever it is, again, the habit is what's important, not the amount. So develop a strategy of saving for those big ticket items rather than charging them and then trying to figure out how to pay off the credit card. I mean, you're going to tweak this to suit your own, because if you're self-employed or if you're an employee, your payments that you have to manage are going to be a little bit different. So you're going to tweak this, but again, I'm giving you some practical tools here, so that you can take that. We'll get back into some more esoteric things in a minute, because there's really a couple of things I really, really want to share with you guys. But this is practical stuff. This is how you anchor the vision. This is how you bring it into manifestation, by developing habits, by developing patterns of behavior. So now look at how different this is, and what I want to suggest to you is we have a big vision, and our vision may involve a certain income level, but more importantly, it represents a lifestyle. It's freedom, it's travel, it's security, it's freedom from worrying, it's retirement, it's everything we dream about. And here's a little step that says start with $10. The point is not to say, how do I get from $10 all the way to my big vision? The point is to start with a little step and to keep taking steps. And if you faithfully keep taking steps, you will achieve success beyond your wildest dreams. So our job is not to know how the universe is going to fill our needs. Our job is in the conscious realm to be the contractor and put the order in for the supplies. This is, what I want to focus on this page is just this little box down on the bottom, The Attraction Factor by Joe Vitale. And I'm giving you guys some of my favorite resources. I call this page my attitude page, because now we're starting to develop some wealth attitudes. And I like his model because it's simple, it's clean, and it's elegant. Know what you don't want. And it's interesting that he starts there, because lots of times when we start on this course, we've got to weed out a lot of stuff to get to what we do want. That's okay. Know what you don't want, get that stuff out of the way. Know what you do want, get clear, and we're going to talk about that on the next page. Feel your intention as already achieved, and I underline the word feel here. It's really an alignment of see it, feel it, and feel it physiologically and feel it emotionally. There was a story that was told by Greg Braden, a friend of his, a Native American friend, in a very dry period of time in New Mexico, went out into his tribal lands to pray for rain. And Greg accompanied him. They got out of the car. The friend said to Greg, "Stay here." The man walked to the center of a field, quite some distance away, but in Greg's visual, stood in that field for a period of time, and from Greg's perception didn't do a darn thing, walked back and said, okay, I'm done, and the next day it rained. And Greg asked the guy, what did you do when you were standing out there in that field, you know? And he said, I stood there and I became completely at one with the experience of being in the middle of a downpour. The same, but this is one that I use twice daily. It says on number 6, after you make this written statement. And you can do it. It doesn't have to be about money. It can be about lifestyle. It can be about finding a manager for your shop. It can be about a new job. It can be about any number of different things. Is to read it out loud in the morning when you first get up and in the evening before you go to bed. Now, if you're embarrassed to do it because you have somebody living in the house and you don't want to hear them, go in the bathroom and do it. You know, but it is. There's something about the spoken word and the vibrational quality of your own voice, hearing yourself reading it. Another really powerful technique is to record it on tape and listen to the tape of your voice twice a day or more if you want to. But hearing things in your own voice is a very powerful way. Let me say something about your subconscious. What we're doing here is impressing our subconscious. Now, our subconscious in the Hawaiian tradition and the Huna tradition, which I've studied to some degree, they regard the person as actually made up of 3 different bodies: your subconscious, your conscious, and your superconscious. The subconscious is called the Unahupili in Hawaiian, and it's like a little child. It's like a little, like a child, but like this little person who needs to be impressed with things. And the more you can create ceremony and impress your inner child, your inner subconscious of the importance of what you're doing, the more it's going to get into action and get into that vibrational frequency and get all excited and get things going for you.
Kind of like Catholic ritual, kind of, sort of.
If it's meaningful to you,
yeah.
Only if it's meaningful to you. But so that's part of this reading it out loud. When you read statements out loud to your subconscious, it kind of perks up a little and goes, oh, this must be important. I'm hearing my own voice. It's kind of a cool thing. That's why pictures help. That's why writing helps, getting as many modalities as you can, because it's impressing that subconscious part of you of the meaning and the significance of this desire that you're putting into action. It goes, oh, this must be important. Mm-hmm. But you asked the question in the beginning, why are we wallowing in want? And I love the way you worded that. A lot of people have an objection to the word want, and I think you didn't really mean want as in lack of something, but why are you wallowing in lack? And I'm going to suggest to you that it's as simple as the possibility that you're just looking in the wrong direction. That what we focus on expands. And so when we put our focus on what we don't have, when we put our focus on what's not working, when we put our focus on what's dysfunctional, what we get is more of the same, only bigger. And I did this as an experiment because I'm a scientist, I'm a practical person. Yes, I'm spiritual, but I'm like, if somebody's going to tell me something, I'm going to say, okay, I got to check this out. I'm going to see if it works or not. So I like to play what-if games with myself, because that way I don't have to take it too seriously. I can say, okay, this is an experiment. And I said, what if for 30 days, to the best of my ability, I only had positive thoughts? And every time I found myself wallowing in lack, I said, okay, done with that, cancel. Now I am wallowing in abundance. And I just made it a conscious exercise to shift my focus, and to shift my focus, and to just constantly, to the best of my ability, put my conscious mind on what I desire, what I'm creating, what I am already having, and not on what I don't have. And I just did it as an experiment. I'll tell you, the results were amazing. That's all I can say about it. So it could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as shift the direction of your focus. There are things that block us. I love this clearing prayer because Bob Proctor says right in the beginning of this page, you may get a beautiful image in your mind and have it end up in frustration because there are inhibitors present, because energy, whatever is going on, he says energy must flow freely and you must be clear. Remember, Joe Vitale said the same thing, get clear. So how do we get clear? How do we get those impediments? Again, I've studied the Hawaiian tradition. They have this prayer process called Ho'oponopono that's about 11 or 12 pages long, and you have to memorize it, and it's beautiful, but it's very elaborate. This is a paragraph. I like things that are simple and easy. And I want to invite us in the spirit of this evening, and then I'm going to do one more thing, and then we're going to be done, to pick one word or one thought that you feel maybe is limiting you right now. And it could be something like, for me, it could be, I'm going to think of something that's limiting me right now. My oversensitivity is something that I'm present to that's limiting me in a certain direction. So I'm going to ask us to read this prayer together out loud, and just have the experience of what it feels like to just take one thing that's blocking us right now and clear it and allow it to be. Because this is a release prayer. This is a prayer about forgiveness and unconditional love. It's very beautiful to me. So is that okay with everybody if we do this together? And when we get to the blank, say your own words. So in the first blank, we're going to release our feelings of unworthiness, oversensitivity, whatever it is. And then when it comes down to the bottom where it says, I choose being, you're going to put a different word there, a more empowering word. And you're going to say that more empowering word 3 times. So you're going to put the same word in all 3 blanks. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This little prayer carries a really profound vibrational frequency. So I'm offering this as a gift. It's one of my favorite things to use, and that's the getting clear part. Mm-hmm. Is that if things are not working to my expectation, that's the place where I go. But this is my manifesting toolkit, and this is again to impress your subconscious. This very last page here, I made this. You know those big poster boards? Mm-hmm. I made it a big poster board, and I took a picture of me in the middle because you want to have you as the receiver of the money. This is a manifesting toolkit. It says in this little box, it says your picture here. It says "Pay me well." The person who originally taught this said, use me and pay me well, and I went, ooh, I don't want to be used. So I said, pay me well, pay me my worth, value me and pay me well. Put what's empowering to you around your picture. This you can use every month, whether you're self-employed or not. I put my budget on this page. Remember we talked about anchoring our new budget. Mm-hmm. And then this is very interesting, the mailbox symbol with the smiley faces. Physiologically, people always respond strongly to a smiley face. Do you guys know what muscle testing is, kinesiology? Yeah. If you muscle test anybody on this goofy little picture, they will always hold strong. And if you put a frowny face in front of them, the body will always go weak. It's very fascinating. I use this on my return address level. I've experimented with this in direct mail marketing. It's really cool. People call me when I put my smiley faces on things. It's a very amazing thing, but do what works. Most of us focus on our bill paying. Most of us focus on when money comes in, I've got to write the checks, I've got to pay the bills. Again, I'm asking you guys to shift focus, put the focus on the income, the inflow, not the outgo. Change the polarity, put the focus on the inflow. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. If you get one paycheck, put that person's name there and a big thank you. If you get multiple paychecks, put each time a money comes in, take one of these smiley faces, write the person's name next to that smiley first and write a big thank you. Isn't that cool? Is that way cool? So that as the inflow is coming in, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to each person who's graciously contributed to your larger dream. Getting is very easy. Mm-hmm. And I make these big. The barometer, you can color, or the thermometer, you can color this in as your monthly inflow comes in, just like those telethons they do on PBS. You know, how much is coming in, how much is coming in, isn't that exciting? How much is coming in? Till you get to the top and you overflow.
Now that would be exciting.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
You know, I want to kind of end this workshop, and it is 9 o'clock, on a really fun note, because gratitude is how we walk in love. And when we get to the space of gratitude, that's the place of release. When we can be grateful for what is manifesting in our lives, seeing it, feeling it, experiencing it, seeing it through our own eyes is already happening, and going, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's that place of release where we can let go and let God. When we get to the thank yous.